Hey, what's up, y'all? We have some breaking news from yesterday for the future of Star Trek, and I can't believe we got all this information in one day and this close to Star Trek Discovery Season 2. We are just a little over a week from getting weekly episodes of Star Trek back, but in the meantime, we got a lot to unpack here, so let's just jump right in. Let's start things off with the most exciting news. We got our first official details on the still untitled Picard show. Alex Kurtzman dropped some intel to the Hollywood Reporter yesterday. Now, we already knew the show would be set in the year 2399. That's 20 years after we last saw Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek Nemesis, and 12 years after Romulus was destroyed in Star Trek 2009. But now we know the show will be dealing with the fallout of that planet's destruction. Alex Kurtzman said, Picard's life was radically altered by the dissolution of the Romulan Empire. So this is a big deal. We finally get confirmation that the destruction of Romulus will not only be acknowledged, but it will play a huge role in this series. I was hoping this would be the case, and this confirms that at least some of the content from the Kelvin movies owned by Paramount can be used in the shows owned by CBS. It would have been awkward if Alex Kurtzman, who co-wrote that movie, wasn't able to use that content now that he is the big boss of all the Star Trek on TV that's in development. Kurtzman also described their initial meeting with Patrick Stewart and how they had to pitch the show to him. Patrick Stewart asked Kurtzman and his writers to put together a 3-page document outlining their ideas. Michael Chabon and other writers, I'm sure Kirsten Beyer was there, and it sounds like Akiva Goldsman was working on this. And they ended up presenting a 34-page document to Patrick Stewart because they couldn't shorten down their pitch to any less than that. But according to Alex Kurtzman, Patrick Stewart loved the ideas they presented him, and it sounds like he is really eager to do something very different with the character that still keeps in mind all the stuff that has come before. Kurtzman said, he threw down an amazing gauntlet and said, if we do this, I want it to be so different. I want it to be both what people remember, but also not what they're expecting at all. Otherwise, why do it? This is all music to my ears, by the way. I'm stoked to get Picard back, and I'm thrilled they are attempting something new with the character instead of trying to recreate the next generation, which arguably the TNG movies themselves couldn't even do. And to me, it makes a lot of sense to tackle a story that involves the Romulans. Picard has dealt with Romulans more than any other Star Trek captain, and in fact, they were the most frequent adversaries on TNG. And the non-canon Star Trek Countdown comic from 2009, that was a prequel to the 2009 movie, it showed a post-Nemesis Picard as an ambassador who again gets involved with Spock's mission of reunification between the Vulcan people and the Romulans. This took place right before the events of the 2009 movie. That comic was co-written by Alex Kurtzman and Bob Orci, so it is possible that Kurtzman and company want to take a similar approach to Picard in this TV show. But that's not all we learned yesterday. We also got some info on animated Star Trek in development. This includes 2 animated installments of short treks that have been ordered by CBS that we are getting in the spring after Disco Season 2. I'm guessing these will drop in May and June, and these will be the first return to animated Star Trek since the animated series back in the 70s. And so it really sounds like short treks is going to stick around and be something they just do between seasons and between shows. I'm sure they want to keep all the CBS All Access subscribers to stay subscribed during the downtime between seasons, and we're going to get some animated short treks in the mix. Alex Kurtzman also shared with THR some comments on the previously announced animated comedy Star Trek Lower Decks that is currently being developed by Rick and Morty writer Michael McMahon. Kurtzman's statements were reported as the following: Lower Decks is totally different from anything we're doing on any of these other shows, and we decided to tell that story and make those people the heroes. He noted that Lower Decks is an animated comedy. The series, nor any other Trek series in the works will never laugh at it. It's embracing and loving all of the tropes of Star Trek, but it's never laughing at it. Now, I know a lot of y'all, and even myself to a degree, were at least a little uncertain when it comes to the idea of making a Star Trek comedy show, but if this is an accurate description of the approach that Michael McMahon is taking, then I feel pretty good about this. I think there is a good shot that Lower Decks will be similar in tone to the most recent short trek, The Escape Artist, also written by McMahon. I thought that was a good approach to comedy in Star Trek, and I'm more than willing to try out Lower Decks. And as if that wasn't enough news on Star Trek animation, we got another bombshell when Kurtzman confirmed that a kid-friendly animated show is in the works as well. I think this is a good idea because I want the children of today to be able to have a gateway into Star Trek. Kurtzman suggested the project might launch on another platform besides CBS All Access. They probably want it to be distributed through some means that more youths have access to. I could maybe see it on normal CBS or on the CW network, which is partially owned by CBS. But do those networks even have blocks of children's shows? I know they used to have Saturday morning cartoons and after-school cartoons aimed at kids. Something like that would be a good way for this show to get out there and connect to an audience. But for all I know, they might be putting this out on Netflix or something, just like they do with Discovery in other countries overseas. Even though it sounds like this animated show will be primarily aimed at kids, I would like it to be serious enough that adults can enjoy it too. Something maybe like the current Young Justice or Voltron animated shows. That would be a good tone. I would love to have a kid-friendly Trek that maybe dials up the action-adventure aspects of Star Trek a little bit, but, it keeps enough of the traditional sensibilities in place. Maybe something kind of similar to the Kelvin movies, in fact. One idea that I've had is they could do a retelling of The Next Generation, but set in the Kelvin timeline. That would allow them to use familiar characters, but with a new twist. They'd have the option to use all the existing next-gen actors, but they could recast those like how the Kelvin movies did with the TOS crew. But those next-generation guys have all done voice work before, so I could see them signing on for this. And they would largely be free from the canon of the Prime timeline, so they would have a lot of storytelling possibilities. At the same time, I can see CBS and Kurtzman wanting to keep everything in the Prime timeline going forward right now, but that's just an idea I wanted to toss out there. Let me know what y'all think. And speaking of the Kelvin timeline, it looks like the fourth Kelvin movie that we once thought would be going into production in early 2019 is not moving forward anytime soon. You might remember a few months ago, there were some difficulties trying to lock down Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth for the movie. It sounds like after Star Trek Beyond failed to meet Paramount's expectations at the box office, they wanted to lowball these two actors with promises to pay them a percentage on the back end of the movie's profits. But neither Chris wanted that. Apparently they both walked away from the negotiating table. So now, a few months later, S.J. Clarkson, who made headlines as the first woman tapped to direct a Star Trek feature film, is stepping away to work on another project. According to Deadline, she is actually going to be directing the pilot for HBO's upcoming Game of Thrones spinoff. It sounds like this version of a fourth Kelvin movie is probably dead. And I feel kind of sad for Clarkson. She's done a lot of work on some great TV shows, and this looked like it was going to be her big break into feature films. But I am glad she found another highly anticipated project to work on, and I wish her well. I think at this point, though, it is very likely we might never get another Kelvin movie. I'm not too heartbroken about that, though. I think Star Trek Beyond was a good movie to end that storyline with. It really rounds out that film series into a nice little trilogy of fun, new audience-friendly popcorn Star Trek. And who knows, if Paramount holds off on Star Trek movies for another 2 years, we might get another shot at attempting a re-merger between CBS and Paramount. If that were to happen, it could lead to a much more synchronized Star Trek franchise, uniting the films and the TV shows back together again. On the other hand, I wonder what is the status of that possible Tarantino Star Trek movie. So that's all I got for now. Just a lot of news going into the sophomore year of Star Trek Discovery. It seems the Star Trek franchise is really just an ever-changing landscape right now. After so many years of so little content, this is really just a refreshing change of pace. But be sure to drop a comment and let me know what y'all think about the Picard show news, the animated Trek projects, and the status of Star Trek on film. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and keep up with the Tex-Trek podcast. We just put out a podcast talking about all the things we hope to see this year on Star Trek Discovery. And starting after the Season 2 premiere next week, we will be podcasting weekly. Every Sunday, we will be discussing the latest episode of Disco, so please feel free to watch along with us and be part of the conversation. And until next time, I'll be sipping jippers on a beach somewhere. Live long and prosper, y'all.